And welcome back to another episode. We are so glad to have you. Today is a monumental episode because today we have surpassed 10,000 miles in our Tesla Model Y. And we're going to talk about all the things involved with going 10,000 miles. We're going to be talking about the cost of going 10,000 miles, the good things, the bad things, how is the car held up, where's the car worn, and what does it look like for the next 10,000 miles. But before we begin, this is a very special episode for me because over the last 10,000 miles, we have shared everything with you in our journey in our Tesla Model Y. Last week, we just gave away a massaging seat mod that we got from Hand Show as a gift back to the community who has given us so much. And I am so appreciative of all of you who have joined us and all of you who continue to stick around and watch our videos. And with that, like I said, we've just passed 10,000 miles in the Tesla, and it has been an amazing 10,000 miles. So I want to take a look back and talk about what does it cost to travel 10,000 miles in a Tesla Model Y. If you've been following our channel for long, you know that my wife and I both have free charging at work, so it's very rare that we actually charge this on our own dime. But that being said, the best way I've come up with trying to figure out how do I communicate the cost of owning this for 10,000 miles, we have consumed 2,902 kilowatt hours of energy. And our electricity rates are 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So had we had to pay for the charging by using our garage, we would have paid about $350 for that 10,000 miles. So let's compare that to the car we had before, which was averaging 25 miles per gallon. Well, it would have been just over $1,000 in gas. So that means this car was roughly 1/3 the cost in energy to travel 10,000 miles. That doesn't include the oil change that would have been due at 10,000 miles or any of the other maintenance items that go along with a gas car. That should give you a pretty good idea of real world, what's the cost difference of operating an EV versus a traditional gas car. The next thing I want to talk about is road trips. And we've had a few road trips in this car and we've shared those with you. But the point is, there is no other electric car on the road today that is as easy to take on a road trip as a Tesla is. Of course, I'm talking about the supercharging network, but that's only one piece of the puzzle. Some other cars are starting to give you a better tool available to figure out where and when to charge real time in the car, but nobody does it like Tesla. And when you combine that with the supercharging network, it makes taking a road trip in this car so easy. You can literally get in your car, whatever the charge is right now, and it'll figure out everywhere you need to stop along the way. Plus, in real time, it'll update where your stops are along the way. This car is so easy to take on road trips. With that said, it's not like a gas car. There's not a charging station at every exit on every highway down the road. It's still a ways down the road before we get to that day. But when we do, you won't ever think about gas ever again. The next thing that I think is really important to discuss along the lines of maintenance is tires. And EVs have a couple things going against them when it comes to tires, specifically this Tesla Model Y. This is an all-wheel drive car, which means it's going to put more wear on all four tires around the car. We're down to 6 millimeters in the front and back on the tires on this car, which is interesting that it's the same all the way around, but in our case, it's the same wear front and back. At 6 millimeters, we're approaching half life on these already, and we just passed 10,000 miles. So if you know about Teslas, this isn't a surprise, but if you're new to Teslas, this might be a surprise for you. These tires are not cheap, and every 20 to 25,000 miles is a good baseline to consider how often you're going to need to change tires. Now, that is just using these Goodyear Eagle F1 tires that come on the car, and there are more options available today than ever before. So in the next 10 to 15,000 miles, we're going to be considering other options that may have longer life. But with all tires, there are trade-offs. You're going to give up efficiency, traction, or some other element by having a longer lasting tire. So there's a lot to consider when going through tires. And today we're not going to be going through all the available tires and which ones to go with. But this is a very important piece of the puzzle when talking about a Tesla. You will be going through tires much quicker than you probably are used to. The next thing I want to talk about is something that I promised I would continue to document and keep updated on this car, and that is, how has wear and tear been on the interior of this car? The first place that I think of when I think of wear and tear on a car is the driver's seat. This seat right here gets the most abuse because somebody is always in this seat. When you get in and out of a car, you're usually pushing down on the side of the seat. So this area right here is going to wear quicker than any other place on the seats of this car. In most cars, you are going to see cracks and creases all along this part here. And this is going to be a telltale sign of how well this interior is built. So taking a closer look, let's see where wear is starting to show. So at this time, this is the only wear we have on the seats, and you can see it in the back section here of this seat. There's a couple of creases here, and again, that's just from the weight of getting in and out and sliding across this whole piece here. Now, this shouldn't be a concern or alarm you in any way. This is normal stuff, but the point is, the wear on this seat is no better or no worse than most cars that I'm used to. So that's a good sign that these seats are built to hold up over time. The next place I want to point out is an area that I knew going into this was going to be a challenge for us. And I'm talking to those of you with kids. If you have kids in the back seat and they're in car seats, you know where their feet are going. So looking at the back of the driver's seat as an example, I'm really interested to know how well this area has held up to my child's abuse. And as you can see, it doesn't look too bad. There's no major scratches or scuffs. There's a couple of areas where he started to dig in a little bit. But this plastic right here, this plastic has held up really well, honestly, given the abuse that it's taking. That area right there is acceptable in any make and any model from children. However, because of the material that this is made out of, it almost has a rubber texture to the top of it, and I believe it is helping to absorb a lot of that abuse it's taking from our children. And of course, we cannot talk about wear if we're not going to look at the most useful feature of a Tesla Model Y, and that's the rear. So for now, just forget that you're looking at these beautiful 3D Max Spider floor mats. That video is coming next week. But looking around the back of the seats have held up really well so far. No major gashes or scuffs. Here along the sides, there's a couple areas where you can clearly see there's some wear. and that's from items that have been laid back here. This plastic on the side here is actually somewhat fragile as far as scratches go. But the biggest area I was most concerned about was underneath here. The material that this floor is made out of is very fine, and it frays very, very easily. This is a very fragile surface in the back of the car, and you're going to want to protect this as quickly as possible when getting your Tesla Model Y. Even just a Velcro item can really do some damage to this. As you can see here a little bit, there's some the carpet that's starting to stick up a little bit from having a little bit of use on it. So for the back, I think it's held up exceptionally well, and if you've followed our channel for long, you've seen the road trips we've taken and the types of items we have put back here. We have filled this to capacity a couple of times just as we're going on these road trips. So in my opinion, it's held up very well, especially the carpet. Now fortunately, we've had the Tasmanian cargo mat on there relatively soon after getting the car, so that's helped to protect it pretty well. Looking at the rest of the car, one of the items that I think you should keep into consideration as well is there's a transition piece here. Every car has it. This plastic right here though is very fragile, and so you're going to want to be careful. You may even want to consider putting something over here like a clear wrap or something else. You can't go too far though, because the tailgate actually goes past this space, but you can see right over here where we have already scratched the surface of this plastic piece. This is normal wear and tear. It's no different than any other car, but just an observation that we've had from a wear perspective on the car. Another one of the areas that you're going to want to think about as you're loading and unloading items into your car is the tailgate. Because of the shape of the rear of this car, it actually slopes down quite a bit. And if you look right here, you can see just how thick this piece of material is. What that means is the door closes and goes into the rear of the car a lot more than you would think, and it just takes some time to get used to how much space you actually have. So when you're closing this door, it often gets caught up, and the chime that it makes to warn you is very quiet. So many times you might get into the driver's seat to drive away before you even notice that the hatch is open. So something to consider and something to pay attention to as you're getting used to your Tesla Model Y. One of the areas on this car that takes a lot of abuse, and in my opinion is not going to hold up as well, is the front bumper on this car. Tesla is not known for having the best paint on cars on the road today, and because of the shape of this front, you have a lot of painted surface that's exposed to the road from debris, bugs, rocks, all kinds of stuff. And it's because of that that it's likely to have issues, and I recommend finding a way to protect the front of this bumper. Obviously a ceramic coat can help with scratches, but it cannot help with rock chips. On a previous episode, we installed a DIY PPF kit, and although it was a lot of work, I'm extremely happy that we have it. Our first bumper was replaced because of some paint issues, so we actually lucked out in about 7,000 miles of wear, and we had a ton of chips and dents and all kinds of bad stuff on the front of the bumper. So after a week or two of having the new bumper, we were able to get our DIY wrap installed to protect it. Other than that, there really hasn't been a lot of wear on the car. It's actually held up extremely well. Inside of the cabin, we don't have a lot of rattles and squeaks and things like that. As a matter of fact, only one has popped up, and it's the center console. This piece of the center console right here, I leave open almost all the time. And I've noticed that I'm starting to get a lot of rattles from this piece right here. And I'm sure it can be replaced, or I can try to lubricate it. But that's the only place I've started to have any kind of rattles on the interior of the car. And with that said, I'm pretty satisfied, because quite honestly, with all of the pieces that are put together inside of this car and some of the other reviewers that I've seen, I expected there to be some issues with rattles, and that's one of the things I really hate listening to in a car. But I've owned two Toyotas in the past, and both of them had rattles everywhere. They were great cars otherwise. This car so far, no major rattles. So this next thing I want to talk about is really the elephant in the room, and it is service appointments. As you know, we took an early delivery vehicle. Our VIN number is under 3,000, and we were in that first batch of cars, and we've had a number of issues, and I've shared those with you. With that said, we are starting to see a lot better cars being delivered, so I say this with that in mind. Regardless of when your car was built, if you have an issue and it's not something that can be addressed immediately while you're taking delivery, I highly recommend you seriously consider if it's an issue you can live with. Let me explain why. We've had a number of items addressed in this car, and we're about 50-50 on the car coming back better than when it went in. So sometimes the fix that they're going to put on the car may cause other issues, and it may just be the service center that we're using, but this is a theme I'm starting to see represented elsewhere as well. So it's kind of frustrating to get your car fixed and have other issues pop up, or the fix is not what you were hoping for. For example, our rear bumper had color issues. It didn't match the rest of the car. And unfortunately, the fix for it was not quickly available. The service center didn't want to repaint, which is totally fine. As a matter of fact, they just replaced the whole rear bumper, which in my opinion is a pretty substantial cost and a reasonable outcome for me as a customer. But let me show you what it looks like. So as you can see, this bumper is still not the same color as the rest of the car. Furthermore, I believe my hatch is a different color than the rest of the car as well. But here's the thing, my previous bumper was a perfect fit. It just was the wrong color. It had this yellowish hue like this one does. This one's a little bit more yellow than the previous one I had on here. But when they installed it, I now have this nice big gap right here, and it doesn't line up well. Also, unfortunately, they made some nicks on the bumper around the corners when they installed it. So this bumper has new gaps that my old one didn't have, and I still have the same issue. So again, before you go to get things fixed, really consider if it's something you can live with before you take it in. Okay, some other good things. As you well know by now, the Tesla Model Y is $3,000 less than when it launched. So this car starts at $49,990, and that's the long-range all-wheel drive. That's a pretty good price, and we're starting to get closer to numbers that start to come very close to total cost of ownership in traditional gas-powered cars. We opted to upgrade our order to include the induction wheels, and I love these wheels. I think they look phenomenal. With that, there are some trade-offs, and I have a smaller sidewall, so although the ride is not a bad ride by any stretch of the imagination, it's a pretty smooth ride overall. Those Geminis will give you just a little bit more of a cushion ride. Also, you can save that $2,000, get the Gemini wheels, and then take that $2,000 and apply it to whatever wheels you want. There's starting to be plenty of options of takeoff wheels from other owners on eBay as an example. So for about $2,500, you can get a set of takeoff induction wheels from somebody who took them off their car. So instead of putting $2,000 into Tesla and only getting the induction wheels, you could get the Gemini wheels, spend $2,500 and have both sets should you want to consider that option. That would be my recommendation. Even if you don't want the induction wheels, just get the Gemini wheels. Buy either induction or some other option aftermarket that's available to you with that $2,000 savings. Yes, it's going to cost you more than $2,000 to do that, but you're going to have two sets of wheels. Now you have a winter set and a summer set. You've also got a road trip set and a city driving set. I cannot recommend getting white right now. I do love the white, and I think it's a really great white, but I have several different colors on my car, and I see so many other white ones out there that have this same issue. I wouldn't recommend getting a white unless that doesn't bother you and you're going to be okay with that. Go ahead and spend the extra $1,000 and get the color you want. Or if you really want the red, I think it's $2,000 more. Just get the color that you want. Also, with that in mind, when you're thinking about the interior, I have two small kids, so white was never a consideration other than how beautiful it looked. Once the white interior car started delivering, it was very clear how beautiful it was, and every once in a while I'm a little jealous that I don't have the white interior. That said, if you're concerned about it, err on the side of caution and get the black interior. If you have kids, these white interior cars seem to actually be holding up pretty good with the abuse that children put on seats. So if it's something you're really thinking about, I say go for it. Get that beautiful white interior and make me even more jealous. As you know, you can now order the Tesla Model Y with or without a trailer hitch. And here's my recommendation on this. There are aftermarket options available and they're at a very good price. However, you don't get tow mode, and should you ever have issues, it can be pointed to as having caused those issues with your warranty. So here's my recommendation. If you're just going to be towing bikes or a carrier or something like that, just get the aftermarket one and save the money. If you're ever going to be towing anything, including a utility trailer like we will, you're going to want to pony up and get the Tesla one. That way you get the tow mode and you don't have any issues should something come up later on down the road. Get it with your order for $1,000, or if you really just want to hold off, you can add it later for $1,200. That extra $200 is kind of a bummer, so if you can, go ahead and order it with the car. Next, I want to talk about the obvious. The Tesla Model Y is such a great family car. There's so much room in the back seat that it makes putting car seats back here so easy, so convenient. It sure feels like a lot of cars give you less and less room in that back seat, and it makes big car seats like the ones that we have a tighter fit. The Tesla Model Y is not like that at all. It has so much space back here. And then on top of that, of course, there's the rear of the car that also has a ton of space. You're able to easily transport all the things that are required when you have kids. It's so much stuff, it's outrageous, but this is such a great family car. I can't speak enough about that. Next, let's talk about charging. Of course, the car comes with a mobile connector, and with that, it only comes with a 110 outlet. However, for $35, you can get an adapter from Tesla. I recommend getting the 1450 adapter for $35 from Tesla. Go ahead and order that now before your car arrives. These adapters have a tendency of going out of stock frequently. So your other option is to get a wall connector. That wall connector is going to cost you $500 plus the cost to have it installed, when the mobile connector can just be attached to a NEMA 1450 outlet, which is basically the same outlet that you use for your dryer at home. It costs anywhere from a couple $100s to several $100s to have an electrician install an outlet in your garage. A lot of that cost is depending on how far your panel is from where you're going to be putting this outlet. Once you have that outlet in place, this mobile connector with a NEMA 1450 adapter will get you between 29 and 30 miles per hour of charge rate, which means in 10 hours you can have about 300 miles of range. For most people, this is going to be plenty of charge. I would seriously consider holding off on getting a wall connector until you've had a chance to really understand, do you need 44 miles per hour of charge? Most people are not going to need that, but everybody has their own position on this, and you can do whatever you like. That's just my recommendation. Almost anywhere you look, you'll hear about software updates in Teslas, and it's because they're that awesome. We have new features all the time in this car, and since we've owned it, we've had a number of updates. Almost all of those updates included new features, and we do not have full self-driving, and that brings you a whole nother level of features and upgrades. Some of the bigger items that have been added to our feature list since we've owned the car are the backup camera. It now displays the cameras on the rear view mirrors. So not only do you get a direct rear view, you also get off the sides of the car, which is nice because you can see where the curb is. You can see if there's anybody right next to the car that the backup camera just can't normally grab. Another one of the features that's been added that I really like is you can have a setting in this car where it automatically locks when you walk away. You don't have to fumble with anything to lock the car. It just does it. With a recent update, I can now exclude home. The car is parked in my garage and I don't want it locked every time because sometimes I forget things in the car and I may be in and out of it several times. Now by excluding home, it's not going to automatically lock, which is a nice added feature. Of course, there's additional features that are continuously being added along the way, and the point is you're continuously going to have more features in this car, which is unlike most automotive mindsets in the world today. Why would they give you more features when they could get you to come in and buy the new model? With Tesla, it's going to be more along the lines of when it's time for an upgrade, it's because you're going to get more range in the new batteries, not because it has more features. My wife and I are in complete agreement on this next point, and that is just how comfortable this car is. These seats are so comfortable, and the ergonomics of where the steering wheel is and where the armrest is and where the door is add to a very comfortable driving experience. Add on autopilot, of course, and you have a pretty stress-free driving experience no matter how far you need to drive. So I've already talked to you a little bit about the front bumper and how fragile it is, but there's another thing that I think you should be aware of. There are not mud flaps available today. I'm sure they will come, and you can make a decision on if you want to make that purchase yourself. But for those northern folks, our Canada friends, you may want to really consider how you're going to protect the side of the car. Because of the shape of the car, there is a drawback, and perhaps it's just because of the induction wheels. However, the tire dimensions are very similar on the Gemini wheels, so I would assume this is going to be the same issue you're going to run into regardless of the wheels that you get. The wheel wells actually have a shape that bows in. So as you can see, the shape of the body starts to go in and it cuts inward. So what that does is it leaves a very easy opportunity for the car to kick things up along the side of the car. This is all the way in the back of the car, and it's almost surprising to see that road debris makes it all the way back here. It's just another one of those things you should probably be aware of and have a strategy of how you're going to protect the doors on this car. Perhaps a PPF kit that protects the doors might be something you want to consider, especially in this very back corner. That seems to be the most consistent area that gets items thrown up against. There's only one car I've ever owned that I spent a substantial amount of money on accessories, and that was a Jeep Wrangler. You don't have to stretch your imagination to figure out where and how much I spent. It's pretty easy to spend money on a Jeep Wrangler. I have probably spent almost as much as I've spent on a Jeep with accessories on this car. There's so many things available for you to purchase, and a lot of them are pretty good items. Whether it's screen protectors or center console wraps that I don't have yet, floor mats, cargo covers, installing a PPF kit on the front end of this car, ceramic coating, a mattress for camping, a cable organizer, and on and on and on. It just continues to go on. So just be prepared. Maybe create a new budget where you can put a little bit of money in every week or every month to help fund your addiction to Tesla accessories. Another item I want to talk about again on this channel, and it's full self-driving. Is full self-driving worth it? It's $8,000, which is a lot of money. Here's what I'm thinking right now, because there's been a lot of updates to the system as well as some news about full self-driving. Perhaps later this year we're going to see the rollout of a subscription model of full self-driving. With that subscription service, you're going to get an opportunity for a lower cost to try it. And if you do that, you're going to know firsthand if it's worth it or not. Now, there are rumors that it's going to be a buy it or subscribe it only model, which means you only have one chance to buy. I don't think that's very likely though, because full self-driving has become a good revenue generator for Tesla. Also, by adding a subscription service, they're going to substantially increase this revenue model. I think that this is going to be an awesome opportunity for people to try the full self-driving system and see if the features are worth it. The reason they haven't done this to date is because it wasn't worth it. So now they're getting close to a product that is going to be worth a substantial sum of money. So once the subscription model rolls out, I will be subscribing to full self-driving. And I'll know pretty quickly if it's going to be a service that's worth having permanently in the car. This may be a good strategy for you to consider as well once the subscription model rolls out. And then finally, we have the rear-wheel drive model that was confirmed by Elon Musk on Twitter that it is indeed coming. No prices have been final confirmed, but if it's anything like the initial announcement of the Tesla Model Y, it's going to be $4,000 less than this car, which means it'll be $45,990. You'll only get rear-wheel drive. You're also going to lose 0.7 seconds 0 to 60, which means you'll be 5.5 seconds overall. That's still plenty quick enough for 90% of people. So if you're in a climate that can go without all-wheel drive, perhaps rear-wheel drive is going to be a great way for you to get into this car and save some money. But you're also going to get another benefit, and that's going to be additional range. At the announcement, it was listed at 20 additional miles of range in the rear-wheel drive model. So if we just look at today's model, it's 316 miles for the all-wheel drive. That would put the rear-wheel drive at 336 miles of range. Now, Elon Musk has already said it's going to be substantially more than 300 miles. But how much more than 300 miles? Will it just be the extra 20? Or will it be closer to 350 miles of range? Of course, that's pure speculation, and nobody knows for certain until the final details are cleared. But I think it'll be somewhere between 335 miles and 350 miles. This could be well worth the wait to get the rear-wheel drive model. So once again, I want to thank all of you for joining us on this adventure. We appreciate each and every one of you who have subscribed and supported this channel. None of this would be possible without all of you, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.